Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In today's video, we're going to be discussing Harry's awful cousin, Dudley. More specifically, however, we're going to be discussing a false reality in which Dudley, a muggle, is magical, being shipped off to Hogwarts alongside Harry in the year 1991. Expanding on that, we're going to discuss what house, if any, Dudley would be sorted into. Would he be an ambitious Slytherin, a brave Gryffindor, a hard-working Hufflepuff, or a clever Ravenclaw? Let's dive into it. First, let's look at Dudley as a person. Dudley Dursley was born the 23rd of June 1980 to parents Vernon Dursley and Petunia Evans. As a young boy, he was about as awful as you can be. He tormented Harry, bullied other children, and was about as spoiled and petulant as you can get. His insolence and general demeanour was the result of his parents spoiling him for his entire childhood, effectively producing a demanding, manipulative, selfish, and ungrateful monster. In addition to his manipulative nature, Dudley also had an affinity for bullying weaker, younger children, the mark of a true coward. This bullying even included Harry from time to time, though much more often in his younger years, when Harry had not yet fully honed his magical abilities. Dudley didn't really have many positive qualities, and it probably didn't help that he had a relatively low level of intelligence. Apparently, in addition to bullying students, Dudley was actually dismissed from Smelting's Academy for poor academic performance. So, in short, Dudley was a manipulative, spoiled, petulant, selfish, ungrateful, and unintelligent bully. My next question is, where does that leave him in terms of a Hogwarts house? Here's the thing. It'd be unfair to assign Dudley to a house based on his childhood alone, because believe it or not, as he grew older, he turned into a respectable young man, even creating some semblance of a relationship with Harry. The Crossroads for Dudley was the Dementor attack that occurred in the Order of the Phoenix. Though the Dementors weren't able to successfully suck out Dudley's soul, the attack still had a profound impact on him, as it forced him to observe the type of person that he was. Not only that, but Harry saved his life, and for this he was eternally grateful. Harry just didn't realize that until much later. This is reinforced by J.K. Rowling in an interview. People usually ask me, what is it that Dudley saw during the Dementor attack? Rowling said, "My feeling is that he saw himself, exactly for what he was, and for a boy that spoiled, it would be terrifying. So he was jolted out of it. Dementor attacks aren't usually good for people, but this one was." What this confirms is that Dudley changed. He really grew out of being the petulant little boy that he once was, and it's even revealed that Dudley later felt remorse for the way that he treated Harry as a boy. Dudley's tragedy was the unfortunate conditions in which he was raised. You see, he never really stood a chance with parents like Vernon and Petunia, who spoiled and infantilized him. Dumbledore put it best himself when discussing Harry. "The best that can be said is that he has at least escaped the appalling damage you have inflicted upon the unfortunate boy sitting between you." Given that Dudley showed his true colors later in life, we're going to assume that the Sorting Hat would pick up on these less obvious, nascent qualities, similar to the way the Sorting Hat picked up on Neville's bravery, which wasn't necessarily apparent at the time of sorting. The sorting ceremony is an annual tradition at Hogwarts. It occurs at the beginning of the school year, and its function is to assign new students to one of the four houses: Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, or Slytherin. Students are sorted using the Sorting Hat, a sentient hat that once belonged to Hogwarts founder Godric Gryffindor. Recognizing that they each valued very different traits in students, hence the rationale for having four houses in the first place, each founder passed on the main criteria for their particular house to the hat. The student then places the hat on their head and is assigned to a house based on which founder they resemble most. First things first, I certainly don't think that Dudley was a Ravenclaw. Generally speaking, the defining characteristics of Ravenclaw House, in a nutshell, are knowledge, wisdom, and a studious nature. They are often, but not always, exceptional students with a thirst for knowledge and unparalleled study habits. Ravenclaws are like sponges who take in their environments and question, well, everything. All aspects of life exist to be uncovered and examined. Does this sound like Dudley Dursley to you? Though he ended up being quite a respectable young man, it doesn't mean that he was especially inquisitive or intelligent. I mean, he even flunked out of Smelting's Academy, I think of all 4 houses, Dudley meshes least well with Ravenclaw. Next up, Slytherin. First of all, let me just say that Slytherins get a bit of a bad rap. They are often unfairly and automatically labelled as inherently bad witches and wizards, but this isn't true. Despite what you may believe, being a Slytherin does not mean that you're evil, and I think that a lot of their bad reputation comes from founder Salazar Slytherin's attitude towards blood purity. On the positive side, Slytherins are often very clever, very resourceful, very determined, and make great leaders. When you think of Dudley Dursley, you don't exactly think clever, resourceful, determined, or great leader. The only way that Dudley fits in with Slytherin is if you consider the false generalization that Slytherin is just comprised of the bad eggs, but that's not true, and Dudley ends up being a pretty respectable person. One of the biggest considerations here is ambition. Was Dudley ambitious? Not really. Selfish maybe. And was he a good leader? Certainly not. Despite having a gang of cronies, he didn't really lead them. Slytherin, in my eyes, is the second least likely option for Dudley. Next, Hufflepuff. The defining characteristics of a Hufflepuff are that they are hardworking, wholesome, trustworthy, and loyal. Hufflepuff often gets a bit of a hard time and is sometimes criticized for being neither particularly exceptional or clever, but this is far from the truth, as Hufflepuff has produced some of the most impressive witches and wizards to date. Witches and wizards like Nymphadora Tonks, Cedric Diggory, and even Newt Scamander were all Hufflepuffs, and they were all incredibly impressive. So where does Dudley fit into all of this? The first qualities that I want to look at are trust and loyalty. As a child, and even as a young man, Dudley had a group of friends that followed him around. At first glance, this could be perceived as loyalty to his friend group on Dudley's part, but I think that in reality, it was more just convenient for Dudley. He wanted people to hang around with. Was he particularly loyal to them? Would he risk his life for theirs? I don't think so. The next aspect of being a Hufflepuff that I want to look at is their hard-working nature. Was Dudley a hard worker? Well, in a weird sort of way, he was. Not at school, and certainly not at academics, but in boxing. In fact, it's revealed in the series that Dudley at one point became the junior heavyweight inter-school boxing champion. What this tells me is that if Dudley really put his mind to something, he could achieve it. And does becoming a boxing champion take a lot of hard work? Definitely. Could Dudley have been sorted into Hufflepuff? Possibly. Last but not least, we have Gryffindor House. The classic defining character trait of Gryffindor is bravery, something that is exhibited by the trio time and time again throughout the series. Gryffindors are brave, courageous, fearless, and every other descriptor that fits that category. Bravery for Gryffindors is valued above all other traits, and we certainly know that if Harry hadn't been brave, then the wizarding world would have turned out a lot differently. So, is Dudley Dursley brave? Well, he actually kind of is. You see, when the Deathly Hallows rolls around and it's time for the Dursleys to leave Harry, Dudley finally speaks up and acts against his parents by expressing genuine concern for Harry's safety. He had been raised by his parents to basically treat Harry badly, and by worrying about him so openly, he was kind of acting in direct opposition to his parents. This undoubtedly took a lot of bravery, and while we don't see Dudley exhibit this kind of bravery in any other circumstance, this is one of the last things that we see his character do, leaving a lasting impression. When we think of Gryffindors, we often think of brave, righteous, and good, sort of similar to the way that we think of Slytherins as bad eggs. But just like with Slytherin, this perception of the house is basically just a false generalization. In fact, there's one Gryffindor student that shares a lot in common with Dudley, Cormac McLaggen. Like Dudley, McLaggen was arrogant, pompous, entitled, and even sometimes aggressive, qualities which are almost contradictory to the stereotypical Gryffindor-like qualities, but McLaggen still made it into Gryffindor. This is because, all of those qualities aside, he was still brave, just in the foolhardy sense and not the selfless sense. McLaggen, like Dudley, even had a bad temper, as Harry once thought McLaggen was going to punch him for not offering him another Quidditch tryout. In the end, however, it appeared that McLaggen was undergoing growing pains in his youth, just like Dudley, as he ended up being quite a brave and righteous young man. Given Dudley's similarities to McLaggen, I think that Dudley would have most likely been sorted into Gryffindor House, a real surprise for his cousin Harry, I'm sure. And that's it for this video. What house would you place Dudley in? Let me know in the comment section below. Until next time, You're a wizard, Harry.